Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, publisher and editor of Native News Online. And today we have a special guest who recently made testimony before the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, and it is a friend of ours, friend of Native News Online's former President Jonathan Nez. President Nez, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Levi.
It's good to see you.
Thanks for having us on the show again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And how are you enjoying your retirement? I understand you're not completely retired. You're doing consulting, but how's life going? How's life treating you?
Well, Levi, I think I'm getting my dark hair back, so a little stress-free, a little bit more time to run on the trails here in Flagstaff, Arizona. So, and spending more time with the family as well.
That's great. And I was real pleased when the press release came through that you were making testimony. And it's really good to see that you're still active and concerned about Navajo people. And I know you're concerned about Native Americans and all people around the country and the world, actually, because that's your kind of heart. But tell us about this U.S. Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee.
The committee right now is discussing the guidelines for the 2025 year. And so the committee is comprised of many healthcare professionals, and their job is to develop the guidelines that the federal or the United States government, abides by. And that includes, lunch programs in the schools and for tribal communities. It's also the foods that are in the commodity food program or the food distribution program.
So it's really like tied, as I recall, to the USDA, and they set the standards of what people should be eating. And
right.
And I do like that. And that way the kids aren't just eating things that are not good for them. Hey, what'd you tell the committee then?
Well, yeah, we are teaming up with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, plant-based. And maybe your viewers don't know, but I've been plant-based for, going on maybe 7 years now, meaning just plants and fruits and vegetables. No animal products. That means meats and dairy products. And I think was the staple food for this country is, fruits and vegetables. We all know the three sisters, the corn, bean, and squash. We have an opportunity here to educate Americans about the first foods in this continent, in this country, and how it was healthy, and to not just have it as a secondary class in the dietary guidelines, but to move it up as a primary food. And I think it's going to really show the rest of the country native foods. And, there's a movement in tribal communities right now. Farming is happening. Foods are being incorporated into, supermarkets all across the country, native foods. And I think that's going to be the next big boom is indigenous foods, because I think there's a big demand for healthier foods, and Native American communities can capitalize this. For instance, the Navajo Nation has 27,000 square miles of land. Man, that you could grow and feed every single Navajo 410,000 enrolled citizens, and plus be able to bless others. And that's sovereignty at its highest level, to be able to help yourself and then to bless others. And, with what we're doing here on the Navajo Nation, with NAPI, the Navajo Agriculture Product Industry, having some of those foods in the local supermarkets. But it's going to take time. And I think really this opportunity, testifying before the Dietary Guidelines Committee, will show that Native Americans know some traditional knowledge in terms of traditional foods of this country.
Well, I found it very interesting because I watched your testimony and on video, and you mentioned that prior to, I'll say it in my words, prior to European contact, the Navajo people did not have dairy products such as milk, cheeses in their diet. When was it introduced to the Navajo people then, dairy products?
Well, we had the goats that were introduced by the Spanish, goat milk.
Mm-hmm.
And, with captivity, I would say that, like, for instance, for the Navajo people, the long walk we were taking to Fort Sumner. And when we were there for 4 to 5 years, the federal government gave the Navajo people rations that included milk, lard, flour, and that wasn't the most healthiest food for people. And it kind of took us away from what we traditionally ate. And we returned back to our land after signing of the Treaty of 1868 with those rations. And today, we all know the food distribution program. We call it the commodity food program. Boy, do we love our cheese, right? Our big
Mm-hmm.
cheese and some of those processed foods. But what we're trying to say too, to challenge the USDA, is let's put some of those Native American foods into the USDA commodity food program. And we've done that as tribes, I know for the northern tribes, they put bison meat
Mm-hmm.
into their commodity food program. And here on Navajo, we put blue corn into the commodity food program. So this administration, USDA, are open to putting more foods. But I think we also should be helping all Americans by supporting, plant-based foods. In our case, the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash.
What have been some of the results, negative results of that diet that has resulted because of the commodity foods in terms of obesity and
Right.
diabetes? Speak to that, please.
Well, Levi, we're coming off of COVID-19. We saw the most vulnerable population have a hard time with COVID. We lost some loved ones because they were in that most vulnerable population category. And that's the people with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer. And some would say that, the foods that we eat, the unhealthy foods that we eat, contribute to those diseases. And, it was sad to see folks, our people, dying and even having a hard time with COVID-19 because of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. But I think overall, Levi, the rates of diabetes has flattened out in Indian country. And the success of the Special Diabetes Program for Indians, SDPI, is of course a source, and we're lobbying to make that a permanent funding source in Indian country. And that's helped flatten out the rate, because it was going up high in Indian country. And here on Navajo, I think the diabetes rate is lessening because, we have runs that are being done here, health and wellness events all across our Navajo Nation. And, I think it is time for Americans to understand what worked for Native Americans prior to, European contact. And let's lobby that and make sure that we retain our health in Indian country. I know that when we talk about health and wellness, it's a touchy subject because it's a personal decision. But, Levi, we have to talk about this because we have seen the diabetes rate increase in previous years, and now we're hoping that the decrease in diabetes will go to the next generation taking better care of their own bodies.
And I'm glad you mentioned that special diabetes program for Native Americans. As we speak in September, it's due to expire. My understanding is September 30th. And so to the viewers, call your congressmen and your senators and tell them that to please reauthorize the diabetes program for Native Americans. And I don't know if I know the exact term for it right now, but because I know we're working on a story at Native News Online, but we really do want to encourage our viewers and listeners to please contact your congressional representatives and your senators.
Right. SDPI usually gets reauthorized for a few years.
Yes.
150 million a year. But tribal communities, tribal leaders have saying increase that funding, and rather than 5 years, make it a permanent allocation of funding. So you're right, Levi, and thank you for that. And let us all rally behind that and talk to our Congress people.
Yeah, we were a strong supporter, and I know you were, of the advanced appropriations within Indian Health Service last year, when I think the end of the year. And a lot of people may not know this, but when the government closed down, a lot of the Indian Health Service clinics just ran out of money. When the government was closed down, they could not do it. This advanced appropriations really prevents that now, and we'll be in good shape. So, hey, we have to really, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, President Nez, because Native Americans, we have to play catch up a lot of times when it comes to some of the programs that have been established for veterans and everybody else. I'm not here to, tear down those programs, but certainly we want to be right alongside with parity of what's given. And hey, now when you were vice president back in 2015 until 2018, as I recall, then you became president up until just January of this year.
Right.
But during your administration, I can't remember if it was when you were vice president or president, you actually helped advocate for a junk food tax on Navajo Nation. Can you talk about that, and what have been the benefits of that?
Well, we have heard of other governments trying to incorporate a soda tax, some type of tax on unhealthy foods, and usually these large companies would come and lobby against that. But as a sovereign nation, the Navajo Nation took it upon ourselves and said, enough is enough. Like I was saying earlier, we just talk and talk. We need to make some changes in our community. So we put our foot down and said, you know what, we're going to charge tax. And that's not a good thing to hear for the consumers out there, but that money that is being collected goes back to the communities. And I know some communities are building trails around their chapter houses. We have the Just Move It program, which is annually, and we tend to run on dirt roads, sidewalks, but we did challenge the Navajo people in the communities. Let's build some trails so that when the Just Move It event, 5K run or walk, doesn't just happen once a year. It's a continuation. They're also using that money to do a lot more health and wellness events in the community, like with preparing healthier foods, demonstrations. We have a Navajo chef. It's quite interesting to hear about Sean Sherman, and what he's doing for Indian country. Here's an opportunity to bring Sean Sherman and our Navajo chefs into the communities to show the community members how to prepare healthier foods. using the Three Sisters and things like that. So the junk food tax was temporary, but during our administration 2 years ago, we made it permanent. And it's going to be a permanent tax, 2% on junk food. And it does about $2 to $4, maybe $5 million a year. And it gets the community talking about health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Now, you do have, you mentioned the Navajo chefs. You have like Brian Yazzie, right? And
Right.
Freddie,
Batui.
yeah. We actually had Freddie on our Native Bidaské a few weeks ago, and he's working with Sean up at the lab in Minneapolis, I guess. And so I'm inspired by that because, you mentioned the indigenous food sovereignty movement that's out there, and it sounds like you've embraced that and you're promoting it. I'm really happy to hear that. And I think Nota Begay's Foundation has worked really hard to really emphasize the nutrition side for Native American kids throughout the Southwest. So it's good work. So,
well, we teamed up with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They have a plant-based initiative there. So it just kind of clicked together. Our firm, Nez Consulting LLC, and just educating people, and I want to say thank you to the Albuquerque Area Indian Health Board who passed a resolution supporting what we're doing to incorporate traditional foods into the dietary guidelines. And, next week, I hope I get a chance to present the same to the All Pueblo Council of Governors in New Mexico. So again, it's a movement, as you said, and it's personal to me because I've seen many people, family members around me have diabetes and some cardiovascular diseases. My mom takes insulin, and so people say it's hereditary, but I'm doing my very best to keep myself healthy. And matter of fact, before the interview today, ran some miles, and we want to promote taking better care of ourselves, and that's what Navajo and I think in all Native tradition will say. There's a word for taking care of yourself, and Navajo is adadahoshya, and we hear that every time grandma or mom and dad you leave them, and they say, take care of yourself in the language, and that's what it means, a holistic approach to health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me this: if you were to give advice to grandmas, grandpas, middle age, and then even the youth, and they say, "Hey, President Nez, I hear what you're saying about the junk food. What alternative is it? Because candy's so good. What are the alternatives for kids who want the candy?"
Right. We banned candy at our fairs and parades one year. That became very controversial.
I guess so.
Education is key. And once I told them why, Navajo government spent tens of thousands of dollars buying candy to hand out at parades. And we have like 6 parades on our Navajo Nation. And, we use that same money that same year to buy from our local growers. Some of them, they sell their produce on the side of the road and trying to make a living. Mm-hmm. Here was an opportunity for the government to help our farmers get an income. We get the produce, and then we hand out those fruits and vegetables at the parades free. So it was a win-win. And I know some tribal leaders are wanting to do the same thing. But of course, it's all in education. It's up to us at the dinner table to talk about this. During COVID, I challenged the pandemic. I challenged Navajo people: don't just be scared of COVID at home. Cook a home cooked meal, sit around the table, clear off the table, and have a discussion about our way of life, our culture, our tradition, our language, and talk about the foods that we eat and how, some of it is not good. Hot Cheetos, monster drinks. I know I'm stepping on toes, but we're going to have this discussion because look around us. I think we all know one or two people in our families that has diabetes, and that should show us that that's not the direction that we want for our people. And
and not to sound harsh, but you don't encounter very many 85 and 90-year-old obese people. You just don't see them. They have, that has worked towards a disease that has taken them out of here and to the other world. But well, President Nez, I always enjoy talking to you, and keep up the great work. I'm, as I said earlier, happy to see you're still really promoting good, healthy practices for Native people, and you made your testimony before this committee. And keep up the good work, and hope to have you back on Native Bidaské soon.
All right. Well, thank you, Levi, for having us on the show. This is a passion for me, and I'm really looking forward to doing some good work in Indian country once again, even though I'm not in government, but it's for our people, not just Navajo, but for all people in the United States.
And people like you, it's in you. You've always been a leader, and so you're going to keep leading whether you're elected or not. So keep up the great work. And to our viewers, Chi Miigwech, thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Native Bidaské. And the word for the week is eat healthy. So be safe and take care of your loved ones. School's back in session. Take care of those loved ones, and kids, students who are watching, study hard. Chi Miigwech.
Right. Food is medicine.
Yes.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chi Miigwech.